go ahead and get started. Am I on? Now I'm on. There we go. Oh my Lord, I hear myself right in my ear. Thank you all for coming out tonight. My name is Caleb Norris, mayor here in town. This is the final public hearing that we have where we're going over some of the projects that are on the ballot. I can't say are going to be on the ballot because they're there. Some of y'all may have even already gone and voted. Holy smokes. I think the only thing worse than hearing someone else talk loudly in your ear is the echo of yourself right behind you. So what we're here to discuss are three separate issues. First of all is the ballot funding question. That's question number one. The citywide road improvement project. That's question two. And then question three, the Center on the Lake therapy pool and parking improvements there. Before we get to that, I want to talk just a little bit about what's going on. So probably the only way that a city can finance anything that lasts more than 5 years is through bonds. If we go take out a loan, we can only extend those payments for 5 years. So to the extent that the city is looking to make capital purchases, we either save up in advance, which we do the best we can. In fact, we saved about $3.1 million, or set aside $3.1 million for the police and fire training facility. That isn't one of the projects that we're talking about tonight, but other than that, if we're trying to finance the capital improvements we're making, we do that through the issuance of bonds. Back in 2023, and prior to that, the city financed its bonds through a property tax, property millage. In 2023, the city allowed that property tax to decrease, to go away. We didn't renew or attempt to renew or extend those bonds. So here in a minute, I'm going to say that if these projects pass, that half-cent sales tax will expire, or the city can come back to the people and ask for an extension. And I had somebody say, yeah, but whenever does a city not do that, right? Isn't it kind of, you get that tax in, and then every few years they come back and ask for it again. And I raised my hand and said, well, we didn't do that with your property tax. And so that went away. One of the things that City Council has been looking at recently is how do we want to go forward with bonds? Do we want to re-implement that property tax and allow the sales tax to expire? Or do we want to try to extend the sales tax? Ultimately, the council liked the idea, and I liked the idea and supported the idea of a sales tax instead of a property tax. One of the reasons is if you have a property tax, every property owner in Maumelle is paying that tax. If you have a sales tax, though, we are hopefully getting people that are shopping in Maumelle from outside of the city that are helping pay for things. So we have a number of projects on here that are designed to hopefully draw people into the city, and when they're here, we want them shopping here and helping us pay for those improvements. So that's a little bit of a backstory on what how we got to this place. What I'm going to do is here in a second, I'll ask Leanne to explain issue number one. But one of the things that I've said and told people is issue number one is necessary for any of the other issues. So if you want at least one project, then you also want that project in issue one. If you don't want any of the projects, great, vote against issue one, just like everything else. Which is why you'll see a lot of yard signs, and I see someone brought one here that say support issue 1 and 2, or 1 and 3, or 1 and 7. And I'll let Leanne come up, introduce herself, and explain it, since she did a much better job last time than I did.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. My name is Leanne Burnett with Stevens, and let's talk about issue number one. In Arkansas, the pledge of any tax to repay debt requires a vote of the people. And in 2018, the citizens of Maumelle approved approved the issuance of bonds backed by this half-cent sales tax. In order to fund any of the other projects that have been presented on this ballot, the first issue has to pass because it will enable the city to issue new bonds backed by the half-cent tax to pay off the old bonds that were issued in 2018. But it requires a vote of the people to do that.
Great. Are there any questions on issue one? I know some of you all have been here before and asked questions on the first ballot question.
What is Stevens' financial gain when bonds like this are issued? Is there a percentage or flat fee or both?
It's not a flat fee. What we generally say is when an issuer issues bonds, the cost of issuance, which includes our underwriter's discount, bond counsel fee, if there's a rating, all of those things, generally speaking, is 2%. Yes, sir.
Now, I know nothing about this, okay? So, are we able to pay on the bond principal along over time if we're able to come up with some extra money?
That's a great.
And it will not reduce the interest payment though, because once we lock into that, that stays at that rate for that amount of bond, right? All we're doing is paying off that principal, so we're not handing $34 million at the end.
Right, so this sales tax, if approved by the voters, it goes 100% to repay the debt. So let's say issue one passes and all the other ballot items pass. That's a half a cent tax. It goes 100% to repay the bonds that are issued to pay off the 2018 bonds and to fund the various projects, okay? When you issue bonds, any kind of bond, an investor wants to know that they're going to hold that investment. They're going to hold those bonds for a certain period of time, okay? That's called the optional redemption date or call date. That date can be 7 to 10 years, in some cases for smaller issues, five years. But that call date, after that date, let's just say it's 7 years. At the end of the 7-year period, those bonds can be repaid from any source. I will tell you, in working with many cities across Arkansas, we don't see that very frequently. Actually, I don't know that I've ever seen that. Typically, it comes all from the sales tax.
Now, so we get these bonds, we get in here and we get everything approved so we can submit for it. And right now, our current bond rating is what, 2.5%, 3%, 5%?
I would have to look.
Okay, I mean, for the cost, because when you talk about paying it all back out of the sales tax, if we borrowed $30 million at 3%, that's $900,000. I mean, approximately per year, or every 6 months, depending on how the bond says for the payback. So we gotta pay that plus the principal, right? Am I understanding that right or wrong?
No, are you talking about the new bonds or the old bonds?
Doesn't matter, any bond.
Okay, so let's talk about the old bonds. So the bonds that are currently outstanding,
3.05 million, give or take.
yeah, the interest rates, I would say they range between 3 and 4%
Okay.
right now, okay? And if this is approved, you have no choice but to issue bonds to pay the old bonds off to free up that half-cent tax, right? So your new interest cost on the new bonds, it really depends on which ballot items pass. If all of them pass, you know, it depends on what passes in terms of how far you're gonna have to go out.
Right.
If all of them pass, you might be looking at a 35-year stated maturity, but the projected payoff will be much shorter than that because 100% of the tax goes to pay off the bonds.
Right, but if we finance at 5% and they all pass and everything, then we're looking at 35 years payoff and a total of $91 million by the time it's all said and done approximately.
Well,
Because isn't that interest due through the whole bond time limit for what you borrowed at the first, or does it reduce?
it reduces as you have that surplus tax collection to pay down principal
If
faster.
the principal gets paid down,
And it has to, every 6 months with surplus tax collections.
okay?
Yeah,
So in that case, the $30 million at 5%, $1.5 million, $1 million, $5, whatever it is. We collect that, our average rolling rate for the year on the tax right now is about 2.6 million in the public safety for the budget numbers. So we take that, we got, like, if the excess tax, if it takes $1 million to pay to service the debt, then we got $1.6 million to pay on the principal. Am I understanding that right?
well, let me give you the numbers that we ran, okay? If you assume that all of them pass, let's use the 2-year average.
Okay.
Tax collections on a half a cent. That's about 1.9 million, okay? If all of them pass, we assumed a stated maturity of 35 years and a projected payoff with 0% growth of, it'd be about, let's see, give me a minute. About 24 years it would pay off. Okay? That's with 0% growth, because you have to structure your debt payment to be less than your projected revenues, so you have coverage, right?
Right. You can't play the money you ain't got.
That's right. And so with 2% annual growth, here's the difference. With 2% annual growth, the projected payoff is actually reduced 7 years. So as the tax grows, obviously the principal pays down faster and then the bonds are retired faster.
Approximately 27 years as it sits right now, it's 20 years if we grow 2% per year on the tax revenue.
20 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
20 years.
20 years, yeah, yeah. And that's
That goes
a,
from 2053 to 2046 as a year date.
Well, using the 0% and 2%, I'd say thank you, Lynn. I'd say the last couple of years, and we've tracked around there, but historically, we've tracked significantly better in sales tax than 2%,
Right.
at least over the last decade or so. With that said, were there any other questions about ballot issue 1, Mr. Mosley?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. What if, one of my concerns is this will tie up that sales tax for a long time. Are there some other items that may come along, like another entrance perhaps to the city that we would need to finance either a road or an interchange that would be $20 million? Would passing all this, would that jeopardize our ability to do something like that?
So the question, and I forgot to say this before, but thank you, sir, you were loud enough, I bet they caught that on the stream anyways. The question is, in locking this money up, are there any other foreseeable projects that we could be spending money on, that we're sort of locking that money in at this time? Fair, rough question, or synopsis of your question. You know, we don't have any projects that, I'm not aware of any. We have discussed a 4th entrance. I don't know that there's nothing working at this moment to make that happen. Mayor Watson can probably tell you how long it took to get the 3rd entrance going after work was started on it. So I don't foresee anything like that. And nothing comes to mind, especially because we're looking at, yes, I think there is a project that we expect to need in 5 to 7 years, and that's Fire Station 3. So that's already on the ballot, because we knew, as Leanne mentioned, once you issue bonds, you're kind of locked in for a little while. And so we included Fire Station 3 as one of the proposed projects because we anticipate needing it in about 5 to 7 years. So that is not a project that bonds would be issued on immediately. We'd wait 3 to 5 years before we're issuing those bonds at that time. But we're seeking that permission here because we kind of have thought about that. And no other big projects have been taken up. I will say that there's also the possibility, so if you extend it to say 10 years or 15 years, we have the option at that time to come back and kind of do what we're doing here, which is to reissue bonds, go back out to the public, even though it's not entirely paid off. That does free us up additional capital at that time if there's a project that comes up in the future that would be a good fit. Anything else with question 1, or should we move on to question 2, which is probably the least exciting for the group? Yeah, yes, Steve?
One more question.
Yeah.
Is our current financial situation really conducive to taking on some more continuing expenses? I tuned in briefly to the first budget meeting. It sounded like we lost almost $2 million in 2025, or we were upside down by that we had to use.
So are you talking about like ongoing operating costs in the budget?
In other words, if we take on more operating continuing expenses like personnel and things like that, with some of these bond projects, will that crimp our financial situation? Are we in good enough health financially?
So the question was, are we in good enough financial shape to be able to afford these outside of just the bonds? I think there's 2 issues there. First of all, if we're talking about the bonds themselves to purchase to get the money to build the things, that money is completely separate from our operating fund. I know you know that. So yes, in that regard. The next step is, are we building things that have costs associated with them that will negatively impact the budget? And by and large, the answer is no. There are 2 projects, I think, that are the projects that, well, I'll just swing through them really quick. That's a good question. The citywide road improvement, the answer is no. That's actually designed to help the street fund budget overall, and I'll get to that in a minute. The Center on the Lake Therapy Pool, I'll save that one too, because there are costs associated with that. But the police and fire training facility there would be some costs. You know, you have an extra building, you're paying for lights and the like down the road, but we're not hiring any new people for that. We've got the staff currently in place that would be at the police and fire training facility. Fire Station 3, the answer is building Fire Station 3 today would put us in bad shape because while the station, the purchase of it comes from this half-cent sales tax, staffing it is an entirely different situation. One of the reasons, without going too much into it, one of the reasons that we pushed it off is, first of all, in my opinion, there's not a critical need today for a 3rd fire station. But also in about 5 years, which is the same time frame that we talked about building that station, we have other bonds that are backed by franchise fees that are expected to pay off. We reissued those in 2019, and I was chimed in when Leanne was saying usually that money comes from just that tax. In this case, it came not just from the franchise fees, but when we refinanced those, we didn't add new debt, and we paid money from the general fund, as you may recall, to reduce that down. So that's expected to pay off in about 5 years, and that is roughly the cost of staffing Fire Station 3, approximately. So that's an issue that has ongoing costs. The Lake Valencia improvements, we think actually reduce costs marginally, and that we're not having to replace that boardwalk with wood and the time on that. That's a 30-year life cycle on that, so that should help us in that scenario. And then the artificial turf is kind of in that same boat, that it should reduce operating costs. So I think that we're in good shape, and we'll talk about the money side on the therapy pool, because that was a big factor for years that we've talked about, and I'll get into that in more detail. Did that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Okay, with that, let's hop on to ballot question 2, and that's the,
Question.
yes, sir?
Number one, you help me understand, what's the rationale? I understand we still owe $3 million on the last project.
Yes.
What is the rationale of, before we're paying that off, and taking on more debt?
So the city's position has been, so that should pay off, and I didn't say this at the beginning, that is expected to pay off in 2027. So we're talking about extending that half-cent sales tax. Technically, it's a new tax. The old half-cent sales tax goes away. It's replaced by a new half-cent sales tax, if any of these pass. Well, if issue 1 and any other projects pass. And so those taxes don't go up. Oh, and I was making a connection that I just forgot. Your question was, so we have in the city very strongly, and I think the law may have changed on this, but we have very strongly preferred going to elections at primary or general elections instead of holding special elections. We find that when we hold a special election, that the turnout is unbelievably low. So we were really looking at, since this is 2026, doing it in 2026 or waiting until 2028. So it's supposed to pay off, I think, April, May of 2027. And there was another question back there? Okay.
No.
Were there any other questions on ballot issue 1? Okay, for ballot issue 2 is the citywide road improvement project. And we have kind of 2 categories here. One, we want to restore some roads that are in bad shape. And then 2, we want to make a connection. I'll hit those first one at a time. We, a few years back, changed our philosophy on how we were spending our annual street fund money on the streets. We changed it from kind of going out and finding the worst road and spending your money to elevate that, and switched it up to a pavement preservation program where we alternate between overlays and then cape sealing or other mitigation. When we brought in consultants to sort of study our roads and how to improve them over the long term, the idea was that we're spending too much of our money on the high cost roads that need the most work. And if we spent more money on good roads, turning them back into great roads, over the long run, it's a much more efficient spend of that dollar. So when a road's in good shape, it doesn't take nearly as much as it does when the road is in bad shape, right? It makes a whole lot of sense, because you can do cheaper repairs, maintenance, overlays, or sealant over the current asphalt. So as we've been alternating to that and trying to spend more money on the good roads to make them better, we obviously have some roads that are low scoring. And we brought in a vehicle that drove every mile in the city both ways to get both lanes of traffic. And if anyone's really bored, we've got video of all of that. We also used them at that time to update Google Street View, since they were already running the cameras there. But those roads that are below, that are lowest grade roads, need periodic influxes of capital to make this system work overall, right? Because we can't just say, well, if your road got a D or below, if it got a grade of D or below, we're just never going to fix that road. We want to spend all that money more efficiently there. So that's what this is. A big part of this is to do just that. We went out, we grabbed our 10 worst rated roads, working with engineers in the street department. We went out and proofrolled those. We found the roads that we think are failing the most. And this is 3 small sections of roads. Each one of those, though, is 1 year's budget of overlay. So I have had some folks say, well, if you're gonna do my road, I'm happy to vote for this. But if you're not, then you should have included mine. And I said, well, our entire strategy is such that for that to work, we have to have the capital on that. And if we say, well, okay, that strategy is bad, then I say, great, for the next 3 years, we're not going to do anything except work on these 3 roads that are in the most needed repair. So that covers that. The second thing is actually making a road connection. And Mayor Watson, we let this time out. I had you log in right before this, but. So while you're talking, or while you're logging in, we have typically we want developers, if they're building a development, to build the road that goes through their development, which is how the city has done it by and large for a long period of time. The stretch that we're looking at repairing is actually shown up here at that yellow line, and that is continuing Natural Trail. So just east of Mont Elms Charter High School, which, fun fact, is located in the city of North Little Rock. But that yellow line there was a subdivision that was built ages ago. And there's a little gravel road that goes through that. Well, on the north side of that, we have existing neighborhoods that are there. So all of that backside of Country Club has to come on down, go through that roundabout and back up. And there's no real, because all of those homes are built, residents are there, there's no developer that's gonna come in and make that connection. So if we want all of those residents to be able to exit through that way and get on White Oak Crossing, this is kind of the way they have to do it. I laugh when new subdivisions are going in, the fire marshal comes in and makes sure that there's at least 2 ways that they can get in and out of that subdivision. But if you'll notice, for those familiar with the area, anything that's beyond basically Diamond Park in the backside of Mont Elm all has 1 ingress and egress. I'm not sure how that happened. I won't ask. That may have been before you. I don't know the way to put you on the spot. But there's no way that we would allow this to happen with the fire marshals now, or it would never specifically be authorized because there's just too many homes that are funneled into 1 ingress and egress. And because this isn't an area that we expect a developer to even come in and develop anything, it's kind of incumbent upon us. Now, just a little bit of backstory as some of those subdivisions were building out back there, the developers were coming in and trying to get the city to build that road. And we were negotiating really hard saying, well, if you're wanting that road, one, because it makes that area more marketable, then you need to at least help pay for this cost, or like, let's figure out a way to do it. And we couldn't get any of them to bite on it. None of them thought that it was a good idea because none of them would take access directly to it. They're like, well, we can just go down this way. So we've tried to get folks to come in and spend money off-site for that road. And those subdivisions are almost completely built now, and you know, they just said, well, if you're not interested, then what they said is we'll drive more on city roads with all the concrete and tear up more of the concrete trucks and tear up more of the asphalt. Now that I've sunk the ship, would you like to talk a little bit more about that connection?
Mayor Norris,
Give us just a second.
if we extend out on Nature Trail up there, do we have a good artery that it will tie into for the people to get to the subdivision to get on Natural Trail extension?
Pardon me?
Do we have a good artery tie up there that where they can get to Natural Trail? Are we gonna have to include that as part of this?
Well, so, and we don't really see it right here, but on the north side, we've got the subdivisions and Natural Trail already built that just studs out. On the south side, they tie into White Oak Crossing. So this would be the extent of the project. The rest of the road network's built out.
Okay, but I'm looking at the line up there where the yellow ends in the box at the top,
Yeah.
on the north side. And is that a good artery road to hit that with?
I don't think it's an arterial classification road, it's Natural Trail. So that
Okay.
road classification was built to connect through here.
Okay, so, but we've got a good road that they can get
The
out.
good road network is already there.
Okay.
They just right now don't use that to come through Natural Trail. They go all the way back down to Country Club Parkway and then to Diamond Park and then loop back around.
They don't wanna lock the hooks on their all-wheel drives and cross through the gravel road.
I don't, well, the gravel road doesn't connect all the way through. The gravel road only connects to that last house and kind of turns into a driveway. Mike?
Thank you, sir.
All right, so some of y'all know me as former Mayor Mike Watson. I work for HAF now, which is an engineering company, and so we've worked with the city on this project. And To answer your question about connecting, Milligan is the road directly to the west of Natural Trail that's in the developed area. It is a collector street. But if we'd have continued it on through, we were taking out somebody's house. So we basically came over a block and tied in Natural Trail. What you're also having a problem with is Amazon, UPS, they think Natural Trail connects to White Oak Crossing already. And so they're trying to drive up a little dirt gravel road, and then they can't get turned around because there's nowhere to turn around. So that connection is needed for deliveries as much as it is for access points. And I'm a client advisor, that's my title. I brought an engineer with me to answer questions. So I've got Joe Moore, he's head of our public works team at HAF. And so I'm gonna let him just give you the specifics on the road.
Good evening. It is both mayor and former mayor introduced me. I'm Joe Moore, Public Works team leader and engineer at HAF. We helped develop this conceptual exhibit and the budgetary cost estimate that that's included in your ballot. The road, as you can see on the exhibit, is about 1,400 feet to connect the subdivision down to White Oak Crossing. It's going to be 31 feet wide, which is just meeting the city standard street cross section for that area, and have a sidewalk on the side. We've also included some pretty significant storm sewer drainage improvements in the project budget, and that's because this is really a pretty flat, low-lying area. When we look at just the available data we have today, a large portion of the area drains to the north, and there's not a big drainage ditch or outfall right up to the north. And so we've included storm sewer piping to make sure that all the drainage in the area gets into a storm sewer piping and then runs out through the existing infrastructure in the subdivision to the north. There's a small piece, as I mentioned, at the very southern end that drains to the ditches along White Oak Crossing. We've also included some pretty significant undercut of the pavement substructure. Just because this being a lower lying area, we know that historically that subgrade is not going to be the most conducive for building a road. So we've tried to budget for a project that is going to be a street that meets the city's expectations when it's all constructed. And that's really what I have for an overview, unless there's any technical questions.
We'll come back to the technical questions. I wanted to see if I can enlarge this. How do I enlarge this? Control. Okay. Thank you, Courtney, for reminding me something that played a big role into this. I'm going to try and point because I don't have a pointer. This piece of land right here is a commercial property. It's zoned commercial. We have had multiple companies come in and look at that property. Excuse me. We've had multiple companies come in and look at that. A few bigger box stores or farm and supply companies look at that in the past. And one of the deterrents that has stopped at least two that we know of was that we would make them do those half-road improvements. So in an interest of transparency and also to clarify the scope of the project, I had mentioned that we didn't anticipate that area to develop with developers. That southeast quadrant is a little bit different, and that is C4 zoning. So I think that's an added benefit to it, is that if we would have had that road in, I can't say that that guarantees that they would have come, but one of the stated reasons that they did not come is that the size of that property and the lack of the road, or the cost of that road that they would have to build there, just made that property cost prohibitive. What we're seeing is, for those that can't tell, just to the left of that yellow line where Monmouth Charter School is North Little Rock. You continue past Monmouth Charter High School and you're back in Monmouth. This part of town is full of areas where property owners get to choose, or businesses get to choose, do you want to build in Monmouth or do you want to build in North Little Rock? And so there's some things that aren't yet built that we've lost that will be coming up in this area in the future, and you'll say, well, why didn't we get those in Maumelle? Why are those in North Little Rock? And it's just one of those things that as a city, we have to do those things that make us competitive in the marketplace. And when you're competing with folks where maybe it's a little bit cheaper to do business, or they're willing to partner with them in some of these projects, it changes up the ballgame a little bit. Are there any questions, or what are your questions on question number 1? 2. Project number 1. Question number 2. Yes, sir.
Are you gonna have to acquire any private property?
I don't know.
There's a possibility that we'll have to acquire some on the south end. There's the land up to the north, about the north half of that yellow has already been dedicated by the property owner that's there. He did it in 2018. So he donated the land. There's a water line that goes through there already. And so when we're getting the easement for that, we made sure we got it right away. But to the south, it's some different ownerships to the south down there. So there probably will need to be some acquired in that area.
Is that not just the commercial property, is it residential property?
Well, so this is one property owner, this is a property owner, this is a property owner, that's a property owner up there. So there's at least 4 different property owners that are affected by it. And the property line, I think, is east of the road currently. So I don't know exactly, we haven't done the survey work, so we don't know exactly where the road will fall in that area. So I can't tell you for sure how many parcels will be required.
One of the things we were wanting to do, though, we were really wanting Natural Trail to just have a straight shot across the street right into Natural Trail. Instead of, there's at least one place in Maumelle where you come down one street and you turn right a little bit and then quickly left. I'll let everyone start guessing mentally which road that was. Yes, ma'am, you had a question?
Well, it was the same as his, I just wondered if the property owner, who owns the property and what's the process? Is it gonna be like eminent domain?
So in the past, the residents that were up here wanted us to come build that road. At the time, especially when construction was just booming in that back area, they got tired of concrete trucks riding down the gravel road, trying to back up. They were tearing up their landscaping pipes. They were supportive of that. And so I don't imagine that would be hostile, but sometimes what you find out is somebody's on board to donate property until you say, okay, I want it, and then they say, well, what is it appraised at? And you say this, and then they say, well, I want 3 times that, and attorney's fees as well. So the process always starts out, hopefully, by people donating property, which does occur, to move the project forward, and then it goes to the city trying to buy it, and then if that is not the case, eminent domain. The residents in the past have come in their entirety wanting that connection to be made. But there was no project on the table at that time.
But nobody's approached them about this.
About asking if they would donate the property, I have not, no ma'am. Any other questions about the road project, Steve?
What is the estimated cost of this project here? Out of the 3.8 million that's
Was that with the 20% contingency? I don't have my readers on, it was just above 2.4.
I would mention that back when I was on the council, I don't remember if Tommy Wright talked to me in person or if he came to the planning meeting or what, but he was, several years ago, he was advocating that road at that time. And I think I was saying, why don't you pay for it?
Well, that was the negotiation, and so sometimes when you're trying to negotiate with folks, you can say, well, we're not going to do it unless you do it, or at the very least chip in. And sometimes they say, okay, well, I guess you forced me to do it. And then sometimes they say, it adds about a 1.5 minute drive time for the buyers of the homes, and I'm not going to pay for it. And this is a little bit different, this is a lot different than most of the developments, in that the road, they weren't even developing at this time the connecting area. We're talking not this phase of Country Club, but further ones back down there. And so we certainly didn't have any, a whole lot of leverage there at that time. Other questions about, question number 2?
One other question, is any of this money gonna go to the work that you're wanting to do on Club Manor?
That is not the plan, no.
Okay, is that project already funded?
That project is at 100% design plans, and we are in property acquisition phase.
Okay, so we already got the money for that.
Yeah, for the Club Manor, yes, sir.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions on this? Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Oh,
I will point out one thing. So when you build the fire station in 5 years, it'll probably be down White Oak Crossing somewhere. This will be more direct access. It'll make it safe for those people that live in the back part, because right now they have to go all the way up to Diamond Park or go to the roundabout, take a right, get back, go through North Little Rock to get back into Maumelle. So it could mean a matter of life or death for somebody if it's a medical emergency.
Thank you, sir. Okay, now we'll move on to the project that I know at least some of you are interested in. And that is ballot question number 3. And that is talking about the Center on the Lake therapy pool and some of the parking improvements. Nicole, come on up and I'll let you go through this one.
I was just gonna get my computer set up.
Okay. Oh. So while she's getting her computer set up, I want to talk a little bit about this project. A number of years ago, there was a big push to get a full pool built here back in 2012, 2013. There was discussions about putting a indoor pool on the ballot at the community center. At that time, while there was a lot of public support for it, we simply didn't have the money to pay for it. We didn't have the money to pay for the operating costs, and we couldn't figure out how that pool was going to generate the revenue that would be able to offset those costs. And I know some of y'all are familiar with that. What has happened is over the last decade, folks at the Center on the Lake continue to advocate for it. And a couple of years back, I went to the council and I said, you know what? We're not talking about the same size pool that we were. We're talking about a different type of pool. We keep telling the residents that we can't afford it on an ongoing basis. Why don't we conduct a study to do a needs analysis, make a determination as to what kind of pool we're looking at, and then make a determination as to what it would cost and how we could pay for that. And we did that. We went out and had a full, there were committee hearings, task force, and a lot of questions, and went into trying to determine what would be the type of pool that would work the best. And let me be clear, the parameters of that study from the beginning of that study were always focused on a pool for the senior center, or Center on the Lake. We did not do studies on a different sort of pool. They did look at, though, the economic viability of attaching it directly to the facility or not. I'm not sure if you have a presentation that you're going to want to talk about when stepping on your toes, or...
Never stepping on my toes. Whenever.
Yeah, well, come on up. I was just stalling while you were hooking up the computer.
Oh, no, you did a good job. Mayor's right, we not only had one task force, we had 3 task force that looked at the cost of pool, and every meeting the mayor would come in and say, this isn't a Taj Mahal, is it? And we go, no, scale. So, we could have asked for something that was 3 pools the size of what we've asked for, but what we asked for is what we can afford. And there's a difference in that. And not only what we can afford, but what's reasonable for our 50-plus community at Center on the Lake. So-
Nicole, really quick, tell them about the 3 pools the first consultant did. And
Ooh,
how,
was that 12 million?
a lot.
Yeah, it had 3 pools, so it had a slide for seniors, a jetted whirlpool. I did not want to have to maintain any of those. But it just wasn't what we were looking for. So really excited that ETC engineers and Mr. Shawkat helped us reimagine what we could actually do. And so that's what I have a rendering of. These are not plans, this is a rendering. I was asked to say that, by the way. This is a rendering of what could be at Center on the Lake. And I will say for about 5 years, at least 5 years, I've asked the mayor, hey, could we build a pool at Center on the Lake? And he'd go, you can't afford it. And then he said, figure out how you can afford it, I think. Maybe the lingo. And I said, okay. So I figured out how we could afford it at Center on the Lake. And we use our, the income from, what we're proposing to do is to use the income from our insurance benefit memberships. We have close to 1,000 members that are on insurance benefit right now. We have 891 members that are paying cash. But the insurance benefit members will bring in the $120,000 a year that's needed for the proposed cost of what we have a rendering of. And that's just very, yeah, I really, when I did this, I really wanted to make sure that I didn't overestimate. I wanted to underestimate our revenues so we could over-deliver on what we could do. So right now, we're at $120,000 a year in that. If we had a pool and if we could renegotiate, which we would, those insurance benefit contracts with an indoor pool, that would be closer to $240,000 a year. So, and insurance membership fees. So we figured out a way at Center on the Lake where we could bring in an indoor pool because our proposed costs are $120,000 a year. And I have some information that I think Mr. Shawkat worked on with local areas. We're looking at, I'll just show you, I know y'all want to just see this. This is a proposed site, so it's the north side of the current building, and then the parking lot would be kind of in front of where the, thank you, Mayor, where the current building is. So there's a picture. Anyway, I'm just gonna keep going. This shows just a highlight of, again, rendering. This isn't exact, but this is a rendering of what we could have. A 50,000 gallon pool or auditorium with shower areas, locker areas. This is a view from, I guess, on top. We're wanting to build a pool that would have a walk-in entry because a lot of our members could really benefit from that walk-in entry. Of course, we would build stairs, different ways to get in. There's another view. This isn't a huge pool, but this is a pool that we can afford with the insurance benefit monies that we have coming in. This is what we felt like we could do. It doesn't have the slide, the senior slide or the senior jetted pool, but it is something we can, we can enjoy that. It shows a hallway, all kinds of things we can do with hallways that we like to do. The front or the side of it. And again, the front. And this is just a rendering of, again, of what it could be. Have to be kind of careful on that. And then adding the parking lot. And I cannot tell you how much we need that extra parking. And it's not just food days, but it's, you know, several popular, I know we like to say it's taco salad. It is. We can only do taco salad, y'all, on certain days of the week, or we flood our parking lot. But it is a serious, I joke about it, but it's also a serious matter when you think of a senior parking at Kroger and walking across to get to the senior center. And she really wasn't in great shape to do it, but I'm sure she did. But this is what we're hoping to build. When we look at costs, so these were the estimates that we received on this particular pool. It averages $120,000 a year. They did check with area aquatics director, like the Bryan Aquatics director that's cited below. We are not, because we're working with seniors and not the general public, we're not at this time looking to add significant staffing. We're looking to add one staff person to help manage the maintenance of the pool.
That includes, Nicole, that includes chemicals too?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So if I could chime in here for a little bit to reiterate a couple things you said. So just to reiterate, the consultants we brought in did the needs analysis, determined all these things, and they gave us 3 pools. I don't remember the exact price, but I think the cheapest of the 3 pools was about $6.5 million, which is more than we're asking for plus the parking lot. And the other, I do think it went up to about $12 million. And I do remember some of those task forces, and I said, hey, this is y'all's chance to say what you need, but be realistic, right? Like if the recommendations come out that you guys have said you absolutely need a $50 million pool, good luck finding a way to finance that and get that going. So we got the report back and we were still not quite happy. We think that we went to our city engineer, Sean Catt with ETC, who has built pools and does them quite regularly. And we said, here's what we have. What do you think it would cost if we scaled down, remove the marble flooring and gold-plated faucets and the like, and just got us something that's more practical, which has been a theme with all of these projects, is not aiming for what the Taj Mahal of facilities, but something that serves the need. I want to talk more about that cost, just to make sure everyone's kind of clear. I know probably those that are members of Center on the Lake understand that, but for anybody who's not, or those that are at home that are watching, for years, the biggest reason we didn't go forward with the pool is because how do we pay for this? Like, we can get it passed and built, but how is that going to impact the budget? Is the police department, how many police officers is this going to cost? Is a fun thing I say sometimes. Like, what is the actual cost for firefighters, in case they're watching? What is the cost? Because the cost is in terms of something else that we would have used. And it wasn't until Nicole, I've been pushing a lot to try and find ways to pay for services that let's look for ways to generate revenue. And in this process, Nicole moved the city largely onto this program where we're talking about members that are being able to pay for their membership through their insurance. By adding the pool on, Nicole has gone out and looked at comparable facilities and said, okay, these comparable facilities charge this much, and this is how much they can bill their insurance. If we add a pool, where does that put our rate? Because now the pool is available to all members, whether they use it or not. And then we can increase the rate that we're charging for all the members on insurance that come to Center on the Lake. And through that, just that, without increasing $1 to any Mono resident, is enough to, I think, almost completely cover the costs of what we expect to have to pay. Then if you're talking about an increase in membership that could come from it, those aren't even there. So this could be one of those things I'm not going to say that it could be a revenue generator because I don't want to stay somewhat conservative. But it was at that point when we saw those numbers that the council and I and our tone completely changed to, well, now if the residents want this and it can pay for itself, let's take it out to a vote of the public. Which brings us to today. Are there any questions? Yes, sir. I guess you know at least one.
Sorry, Mayor.
No.
All right. Is this going to require specialized training for employees of the center? How many will it require to be trained for the center? And is the cost of getting those employees on that curve up front in part of this project so that we're not having to pay that? All we have to have is maintenance costs for certifications and recertifications, not initial training.
Yes, sir. I plan to get my commercial pool operator license. I've had it in the past, so it's something that I know I can do. So I will have that as well as if this passes, as well as a new employee that would be handling the maintenance.
Okay.
So we would have 2 on board.
All right, so we got 2 that have certified pool operation
Yep.
certificates. How many are gonna have to be certified lifeguards?
None,
All right?
none, not with this size.
Okay. So we don't have to worry about that.
Nope.
And then all we'll have is maybe some maintenance and chemical handling, update training and things of that nature as
Sure.
we go down the road that we can get out of possibly $220,000 of insurance right there.
Yep.
We're not talking about 220,000 extra. We're talking about 120 extra, but it's combined with what we're already getting.
Right.
I just want
Yeah.
to, so when we're doing the cost analysis, it'd be super profitable if we thought we were getting a bump of 200 and something thousand.
No, it's just, that's the long, up to. But, all right, I just want to make sure that if we do, we've got that covered, because sometimes these upfront learning curves on a new addition like that is very expensive, and we need to get it in a project if we're going to do it.
Sure.
Are there any other questions? Yes, sir.
I've had a pool, I don't anymore. And I would say maintenance costs increase 5 to 10% a year. If you want to heat it, it costs a whole lot more than $200 to $400 a month. And that's going to increase, say, 5% a year. How do you build in the compounded increase in cost that's going to occur if you build something like this?
We budgeted for what we were calling direct facility expenses of about $30,000 a year. And that was like direct repairs to the facility, chemicals, and that is not inclusive of utilities, which we budgeted at about $40,000. I don't know how to answer that, the rising costs any more than anything else.
The
I guess
insurance
I could,
company aren't going to pay 5 to 10% increase.
pardon me?
The insurance companies will not be paying 5 to 10% increase.
I don't know about that. I'd be happy to get a 5 to 10% increase on the bills they send us every year, because those are going up 20% a year, it seems like. But yeah, no, that's an issue. I don't think that's unique to this. It's just an issue that we have with everything there. And surely I think that we'd be in trouble in the long run if rates weren't reassessed from time to time, and the same thing with the insurance benefits. And I haven't, I'm not sure if you know their procedure for reassessing rates, but I believe it's set on them. What you do, you're welcome to chime in, but I believe their rates that they pay are set on the market rates. Nicole?
They are. But I also, in the estimate that I gave to the mayor and the city council, I estimated it low. So 120,000 is about what we're bringing in right now. If, watch how I say this, if this were to be built, then we would have the opportunity to renegotiate our rate. The rate that area gyms with pools are paying are about double what we're currently receiving. So I do.
Do you know how often they re-review that? So the question is, as I should have restated, is pool costs go up on an annual basis. how are we accounting for that increase in cost? And what I'm trying to indicate is that I'm operating under the assumption, and hopefully my mom's not watching, because she told me not to do that. But that those rates paid by insurance are also being reevaluated on a regular basis.
And there's a process which the mayor, and if he gave me on his behalf, we would enter to renegotiate. So we could do that each year if needed. Yeah.
Ask a doctor how reimbursement has gone over the last 20 years.
Are you a doctor?
Yeah.
I will, how has it gone over the last 20 years?
Pardon?
I said, if you're a doctor, how has it gone over the last 20 years?
Well, in about 1990, an orthopod, or let me say a hernia repair, would reimburse $1,500 or so. Today, it's between $200 and $400. And that doesn't account for.
Is that because it got so much cheaper? I'm assuming that is not the
No.
case.
I mean, look at what's happened to costs, but
Yeah.
insurance companies, the government, Medicare, decreases reimbursement.
Gotcha. Yeah, so that's just something it very well could be, because what we haven't built in at this stage is anything dealing with those members that are current members that are not on the insurance and how to address that. And presumably there would be a cost there. We'd have to reevaluate cost for usage of the pool if the costs of the pool went up. Steve?
Yes, what the heck is a therapy pool? Who can use it and what is it used for?
Sure. Do you want to hit this, or? I was waiting for a good question from Shawkat. I was going to tell him I apologize for him coming up.
No, you
So,
can.
Shawkat's our city engineer and is who we worked with to
Hello. Hi. So therapy pool is always built for senior citizens mainly. It has an aquatic aerobic exercises classes, and actually in this pool we because it's a small size, so we included in our cost estimate. It's called infinity pool. So the infinity pool is basically it works like a lap pool. So it's some people call in residential pool is called endless pool. So you can swim. You can swim, but in the same place, like treadmill. So you can swim in the same place. It's called infinity pool. It's a jet. Jet is basically pushing you back, and you try to go back. And there are all sorts of classes. Like a lot of time we have seen, because we have built so many design actually, and designed so many therapy pools around the state. And there are programs from hospitals. They bring their patients and do the specific exercise in the aquatic environment. The pool that we propose also have a wheelchair accessibility. That ramp has a wheelchair, so they can also, attend those kind of exercise in the wheelchair.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with your accent, I apologize.
So tell me again. I'm sorry.
No, here, let me chime in. So what he was saying, I should add, so a therapy pool, this will allow lap swimming.
It does?
But it's a 25-foot stretch.
Okay.
It would allow, and then he was also saying it has currently priced in is an infinity pool element. That is the pool where the water flows at you so that you can swim in place. It allows some swimmers to swim in something about the size of a jacuzzi because the water is flowing and that gives, like a treadmill. I think maybe the biggest use would actually be the water aerobics classes. If you don't know what that is, hop by the community center in the summer and see that be used. I assume that's going to be the biggest use. And we have had physical therapists reach out to us because they'll do physical therapy exercises in the pool using, a lot of times you don't have to use weights, or you can use little light water weights. And you're moving around in that pool against Thank you. Against resistance, sort of activates the muscle in a light way. But it does allow for swimming, but it's not, your swim team, and let me clarify this, currently the plans are for this to be open to those members of Center on the Lake that have that membership, not open to the public. And I just say that because as soon as we start talking about lap swimming, I don't want just general folks in the public thinking it's open for lap swimming in that way. Is there anything else, Nicole, to add to what a therapy pool is, or what we're calling a therapy pool?
One of the big keys of a therapy pool is it'll be higher temperature than a regular swim.
It is.
Yeah. So for those on Facebook, the comment was one of the key benefits of a therapy pool is that the water temperature is a little bit warmer than lap swimmers. Yes, sir?
What was the maximum depth of the pool?
What is the depth of the pool? I think it goes
Yeah,
from,
it's 4 or 5 feet. There are variable depths starting from, for eligible for like wheelchair and then deeper.
so it's, I think the deepest where someone, or the shallowest where someone might be swimming is 3.5 feet. Based on, and again, whenever we get into these numbers or specific dimensions, this is not an engineered pool, right? And so oftentimes I've found that engineers get going and then things change, circumstances change, the factual reality of the site changes or whatever. But it's currently slated to be, and I was trying to find the notes that I had.
Actually.
Is it in here?
Yeah, it's in there.
Okay, well, can you log us back in?
But,
And while you're doing that, there was another question?
What percentage of current users do we think will participate in the pool? We studied that?
Well, it's a little bit like, the, table tennis, or the billiards, or lunch program, or transportation, fitness classes, anything we do, whatever we seem to be doing matters to the people that are using it, and it's making a difference in their lives.
You don't expect us to interpret what we're looking at.
maximum 5 feet.
Okay, maximum 5 feet, lowest point is 4 feet.
Any additional questions, discussion? Yes, sir?
Oh, yes, so basically the swim team's not gonna be using it, is that right?
If you're talking about the swim team formerly known now as the Maumelle Marlins, no. It wouldn't surprise me if the Maumelle Center on the Lake came up with a little swim team or something. But so I don't want to say no, but it's not, we're not looking at youth swim teams. They would not want to use this anyways.
There's no hot jacuzzi or anything?
There's no separate jacuzzi or sauna there, and that was the $12 million one we rolled out.
So this thing will be about 25 feet long?
I believe, can you look at that again and tell me what your measurements were? I thought I had memorized everything, but,
Say 25.
Janet and I have already signed up for the synchronized swim.
synchronized swimming.
I bet you heard it.
As memory serves, the swim portion was 25 feet, but I could be wrong.
Oh, you're talking about the.
The swim portion of the pool,
The out portion.
yeah, like, so from there to there. 51 feet? You're
Yeah,
thinking?
but then you take this portion out, so, yeah. I mean, it's about 51 feet long.
51 by
51
25.
feet?
Yeah.
But if you're looking at the
curious, just the basic size of the pool, if it's.
So what is the size of the pool in this room from, in my head, I'm imagining,
So the total, I think the total water body is 50 by 35.
15 by 35?
50 feet by 35 feet. The water body.
All right, thank you. What about the parking lot?
so great, I want to talk about the parking lot too. Yeah, what was your question?
The parking lot, is that part of this deal?
Yes.
Okay, that's the pave and all that. Are we gonna be foregoing a possible commercial or retail shop or something there that somebody could buy from the city, buy a lot?
Conceivably, yes. The lot that we're looking at going for the parking is that front corner lot that is right across, it's the undeveloped corner on Club Manor and one of the things that, and I have for the longest time, I think the phrase I've used is rather than build a parking lot there, why don't we just buy a limo, hire a limo driver, and drive people around and pick them up and take them home? It'd be cheaper. And that is actually partially true in that area, at least until the cost of the parking lot, or the cost of the limo driver would exceed the parking lot. One of the things that we haven't talked about is we are talking about the Club Manor corridor that is going in. We're creating this area called the Maumelle Mile where Club Manor is going from 4 lanes to 2 with that side path that ties into Millwood Station. Free plug, March 13th, come out to Millwood Station Food Truck Park. And the reason that I bring that up, because that's when our ribbon cutting is, that will serve as a trailhead for one end of the trail system through the sort of commercial corridor of Maumelle. And this parking lot would also serve as the trailhead for the other end. So folks that were wanting to come to that area, we don't have a lot of city parking, and so if somebody was saying, hey, I want to come out here and walk around, it becomes trailhead parking at that point as well. It's just public parking right there on the Greenway. So when you combine both of those plus the need of the center, which I've been hearing for since day one, and even before day one, and then you combine, if you're adding a pool in, that you would expect at least one more car at any given point in time, and I think that's safe to say. The fact is that you're really increasing the demand on that there. And that, just to be, for those that don't know me saying at least one more car, it's a little bit facetious. We would expect more people to be using that pool. Yes, sir?
The question to the, about the commercial development, the only thing that can go on that lot based on the parking requirements that would be required is a coffee vending place. Well, that's the only thing that'll go there. I mean, because we talked to different people. Fast food restaurant can't go there because of just the size of the lot. And the difference that they're using it for parking, there's no building going on. It's just parking. So you eliminate part of it. You've also got to have the landscaping around it and all that. So, we were approached by people when I was the mayor that wanted that corner, but then it just wouldn't work for their facility.
Yeah, I haven't been approached by anybody asking about that. I'm not sure if Courtney had either, and she's shaking her head no, so we haven't heard anyone asking about that.
And that was before we finished the construction.
Okay.
Yeah, of the center.
Yes, sir?
Mayor, this question related to this in a way. Are we looking at building a north-south traverse capable for e-machines, e-bikes, scooters and everything to bring traffic in from Maumelle Valley Estates, Osage Falls and that area down to the center so that they're not riding in the road and not on the sidewalk or on the normal trails where it's too narrow for that anyway?
No, sir.
Okay.
I'm not, I think there's some things in the active transportation plan that talk about extending the trail network along Odom. That is certainly not what we're talking about
Right.
here, and those aren't any of the phase one projects that we're targeting as part of
I
that.
understand, but just in general, is there any thoughts in the background for that? Because I know I'm seeing a lot of the, older folks, what I call, my age folks, that are riding e-bikes and stuff, and, you know, on the street, they're a little iffy, and on the trails, it's way too tight with our normal trails.
Yeah.
Actually, they're not even supposed to be on our normal trails, so. Just something for the future, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions about this ballot question? Okay, that concludes what we'll talk about here. Just a reminder, these are on the ballot. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask us. If you go to manuelbond.com or scan that QR code, you can contact us through that. Courtney is doing her level best to answer those questions in as much detail. Good questions we're adding to the FAQ. So without further ado, thank you all for coming.